All right, but Jim is not our keynote speaker tonight. We actually have a Bassmaster Elite Pro, Carl Jochimson. We got a video that is going to be his entrance coming up right here.
Well, I have the biggest decision to make. I can't lay up today. I have to catch him.
Sing like never before. Oh, my soul. Wait, hold up.
He's the only Australian to ever win a Bassmaster Elite Series event. He is a two-time Bassmaster Classic qualifier, and this may just make it number 3. From Toowoomba, Australia, Fear My Heart, Carl Jochimson.
You know, I get the opportunity to sit down and just have a conversation with Carl and let him share his story, and I'm excited to do that. I met Carl several years ago. He was already fishing professionally, and one of our staff members' daughter met Carl. And so I still remember Craig and Sherry, our staff daughter's mother and father, saying, hey, this guy's coming, and he's a hunter. Here, he's a fisherman. He'd like to hunt. He's never been to North Idaho. He'd like to do some elk hunting. So Randy and I, one of the guys I hunt with, we took him out. And he didn't, I don't know if he had a good time or not, because his idea of hunting was not what we were doing. We were driving around, you know, spotting, and we only walk places if we see something. And Carl's idea of hunting is find the biggest hill, go clear to the top of it, see if something's up there. And I did that when I was young. I don't do that anymore. And we actually, we killed an elk that day, and Carl wanted the whole experience. He wanted to gut it. He wanted to pack it. It was one of those ones we could actually pull down to the road. Oh no, he wanted to pack it down to the road. And so we got to talk during those trips and got to know each other. And then of course later he married Kayla. And so I've gotten the opportunity to watch Carl. We're going to tell his story. He's going to tell his story. Carl didn't know anything about God. And so I got to be a part, watching and be involved along with Randy to see Carl's story. So Carl, I'm so thrilled that you were here. All the way back then I was like, someday we're going to be here. And I didn't tell you that because it would have freaked you out at the time.
Yeah.
And now I know this is like Carl's, just so you know, last night, we have so many people this year, we put 2 full events back to back. Aren't you glad we did that? Two in a row. Or we would have had to turn away a bunch of people. Last night was Carl's first time ever doing this in his entire life. So you get number 2. And I think you're in for a treat. Carl, why don't you share us the story about how you got into fishing?
So before I start, I came in, I was here when everyone got to set up this amazing. Can we get a round of applause for all of these awesome mounts and the setup and what these guys do? And I was looking at all these huge mounts, Jeremy's giant bull here, all of these amazing whitetail, and I asked your staff, I said, where's Jim's? And so they actually went home to your house while you weren't there, and they pulled the biggest whitetail that they could find off of your wall, and they brought it in, just a sign to show Jim's mount should be up here, and they're going to bring it in.
That is not mine. You're going to fit in
mate.
around here really well.
It was my idea. I had to do it.
Yeah.
No, thank you, mate. Unbelievable. I remember all of those times that we got to spend in the truck and the little seeds that you and Randy were trying to plant. And it's cool because getting in the truck with you at that time, I was like, all I wanted to do was get in the mountains. Like, I thought it was unbelievable just being in the truck and being in Idaho. For me to be a kid from a little town in Toowoomba, Australia, and then to be up in these mountains, I was so grateful. I was soaking every second in. When you spoke about God, I was like, what is he talking about? And I just wanted to kill an elk or see an elk. But who knew that those little words that you and Randy were speaking would ring so clear to me years and years later. But my story grew up in Australia, a little town called Toowoomba, and Australia has great hunting, great fishing, and for some reason I had a spark for fishing. I was probably 5 years old, fishing off the beach. My whole family, they want to play, do all the beach stuff, and I had this patience for sitting on the beach and wanting to fish. And when I caught that first fish, I dragged it up the beach and it just did something to me. I showed campsites 10 up and 10 down from us, knocking on tents, wanting to show them this fish that I caught. And I just never, ever lost the passion. I'm 41 now and it's burning stronger and hotter than it ever has before. But from that day, that's all I wanted to do. And parents don't like when I say this, but I did not like school. If the weather was good, my name wasn't on the roll call. I was gone. And my mum was amazing. She supported me. I would call her up. I'd be at school not having a good day, and my mum would sneak in there and get me and my mates out of there. And it was back in the day where they would drop us at the lake, and I'd be there for 3-4 nights, camping, fishing, just adventure. And did the same thing with hunting. We'd go into the outback, chasing pigs. We just did everything with my mates, and it was the best time of my life. And it just turned to where that's all I wanted to do. I couldn't sit in the same spot for one time. All I could think about is that. And when I was about 15 years old, I was at a little lake called Maroon Dam, and we were fishing, and I was very lucky that I got this slow progression from like fishing off the bank with bait, and then someone got me in a canoe, and I couldn't believe I was off the bank, and then someone took me in a boat. I was really grateful for that slow progression up. And there was a tournament run on this lake, and we walked down to it, and there was 5 American bass boats that they'd imported into Australia, and they were pulled up on the bank, fiberglass. I'd never seen them before, and it did something to me. And I was like, what is this? And I was fishing a tournament. I watched them weigh in, I did it, and I was extremely competitive. I wanted to win at everything, and I was like, you can compete in fishing? And so the very first tournament I found, my mum drove me 3 hours to this lake. I fished in a little tinny, and I had a trolling motor on it, and I just couldn't believe I was doing it. And I ended up catching big bass, and I came fourth in the tournament. And at that time, at about 15, I was getting hell from my teachers, my peers, everyone around me saying, if you keep fishing, like, you're going to be a loser. You are not going to make it. You're going to be this. You're not going to get a job. And they were hammering me, and I wanted to do anything to prove them wrong. And I won this $500 check, and my mum was driving home, and I looked at this check, and I said, this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. and that's kind of what I did. And at the start, I had a chip on my shoulder. I wanted to prove everyone wrong that told me I couldn't do it. And from then on, from 15 to when I was 26 years old, I never missed a single tournament in Australia. I fished every single tournament I could. I won Angler of the Year 3 times. I won a lot of tournaments. Ended up winning the grand final, but through that 10-year gap, I was looking to America, and I was watching ESPN. I was buying books and videos, anything I could get from America. I wanted to be on the cutting edge, and I knew it was over here. And in about 2009, I won a trip. I won our biggest tournament in Australia, and it got me to a trip to America. That was my goal for 10 years. I have to win that trip for some reason. I was drawn to here. From a little kid in Australia, I don't know why, I just wanted to do something that no one had ever done before. And so I'd followed the Bassmaster Elites and Kevin Van Dam and all these big names. And I finally, after 10 years, I won it. And I flew into America, and guys took me around and they took me to Lake Fork, and I ended up walking into Bass Pro shops, and I seen the mounts and the deer and the hunting and the fishing and the way they championed it here. In Australia, it was like an underground thing. You didn't speak about it much. Hunting was very low-key, small shops, and you had to be careful with who you spoke about hunting or fishing with. It was different. And when I seen it, and I seen how big it was and how the passion and the for hunters, they were put on another level, I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I spent 3 weeks here and went home and said, I'm coming back. And I had a good life in Australia. I'd worked 10 years in a fish and tackle store. I had dogs, I had a girlfriend, I was competing, I was doing everything, and I sacrificed the whole lot. My family, my friends, everyone was there. I literally sold every single thing that I'd ever worked for. I saved up for a year, and I flew over here with 2 suitcases and a rod tube, and I landed in LA, and I haven't looked back since. It's pretty wild.
So when you think about, you get here and you go through this process on the pro tour here, how did that happen?
Yeah, I almost quit more times than I'd like to ever know. I got extremely lucky that I was so driven and I wanted it so bad, but it was so hard when I got here, being from Australia, trying to get a bank account, a visa, just trying to get a fishing license was difficult. I was driving on the other side of the road in the truck. It was wild. It was an experience. I don't know how I'm standing up here today. LA traffic, learning to drive there, it was crazy. And I just kept going through these steps and just wanting to constantly turn around. But what I found was, I see this later on in life, is someone would always step in right when I was about to quit. And my driving force then was the people that had told me that I was never going to make it, that it was a pipe dream, it was too hard, it was too difficult, you can't come from Australia and make it top 100. And I would think about those people constantly, and I'll talk about that later. And that whole thing has changed. But at the time, those people were like lighting a fire under me, and I don't think it was great, but it got me up in the morning to keep going. And in 2014, I made it to the top 100 guys in the world, and became the first Australian to make it to the Elite Series.
When that happened, yeah. When that happened, did you go, I've arrived, I'm top 100? Is that what happened?
Yeah, pretty much. At the time, this was the journey that has led me to here. I got a realization that in my head, through that, I was like, if I can just get to here, and I'd been doing that my whole life. I was like, if I can just compete in Australia, I can show them that I can fish a tournament in Australia, and then I did that. And then I was like, if I can just win one of these, then I'll prove everyone. And then I was like, if I can just win the grand final, and I did that. And then I was like, I need to go to America, and I did that. And I had this thing, if I can just make it to the top 100 guys in the world, like my life will be set. I'll literally be set for life. I'll probably have nothing to worry about ever again. And that was the wrong thing to think. Life got really tough right after that, when I thought it was going to get the best. And that kind of progression just kept happening in my life. I had this next thing, this next goal that I had to get to, and I kept finding that right when I would get it, I was like, well, I need to get to the next thing. And that has sort of led me to like realize that there was something different.
Now, I got to know you before. I think it was before you won a major American pro tournament.
Yep.
And everybody was excited following you, you know. And when you won that tournament, like now you're not just top 100, you've won like the top of the top.
Yep.
That did it for you, right?
I thought it did, and it did at the time. But that was the change. I'd met my beautiful wife Kayla in 2015, and she went through the trenches with me. I mean, we were sleeping in the back of the truck. We went broke several times. I lost my Elite Series career at the end of 2016, and I was in Australia, and I got kicked out of the Elites, bad in points, and she was my force to be like, I can't quit, I can't give up, and she just supported me like I can never imagine. And I end up fighting my way back over the next several years, 17, 18, made it back into the top 100 guys in the world. So I fought my way back and then had another bad year right until the death, and then I finally won a Bassmaster Elite Series event, and it was worth $100,000. It was a big deal. We were broke. We were getting married the next week. It was, looking back at that time when I won, I was like, I knew I was going to do that. Look how good I am, kind of thing. And I didn't realize that God was paving this insane way for me to actually find him and get an appreciation. But through that, when I got that and I won the money and I had the trophy and all of these things, I started to feel like now I had to hang on to it. It was like everything, and I had nothing. I'd gone broke and I'd fought my way back, and now I have this and I have these great things, but then every day I was like scared of losing it. And so it was a weird feeling of like, I just got there and now I've got this different sick feeling that I'm going to lose this, and how do I hang on to it? And I also realized that, okay, well, what's next? I got to win Angler of the Year. What's next? I got to win the Classic. And little things started to change at that time. And in 2019, I got to come up here, marry my wife, meet my wife's family, Sherry and Craig. And through that entire journey, I got little seeds planted, like what you guys tried with God, but it didn't work at the time. But in 2011, when I first got here in America, I'd never been told about God, ever.
Yeah, tell me about what your family was different.
Yep.
What'd you know about God?
Pretty much I sort of, just thought it was some guy in the sky. That's about as close to it I
Remember
get.
the story, you get there, you're in your first partnership in a boat.
Yeah.
And what did that guy say to you?
It was 2011, I remember it distinctly, and I was in my boat and a co-angler got in, and I'm fishing and he's with me all day. And the first thing he said, what's your relationship like with God? And I said, what? And he said, and I said, what do you mean? And then he tried to explain it, and I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And then he was like, dude, you need to be saved. And he started hammering me. And I was stuck in the boat with him for 11 hours. And I was like, I hope I never draw that guy again. That was rough. And then it kept happening. And I was like, what are these people talking about? I had zero idea, and I would sort of see, but it sounded crazy. And then at the Classic, sometimes the stadium would be full and someone would thank God and the stadium would erupt. And as an Australian and Aussies, just grew up super cynical of God and religion and all of this. And I couldn't get my head around what it meant. I thought it was something so different and out of this world that I thought I don't care what Jim says, he's never going to convince me that this is real. And fast forward through all of that and through all of those little seeds that got planted, I finally started to see examples of what like a true Christian man.
Okay, let's stop right there.
Yeah.
Okay, you said something that I think was so good. Sherry and you had a conversation about that. Tell them about that conversation.
So I think it was probably in 2020 or something, and as an Australian and growing up with my family, friends, everyone, I'm talking no one has ever spoken a word about God or Jesus or anything. And we just have a totally different perception of it. And my biggest mistake that I'd made through my life is the very first time I saw someone talk about God or being a Christian and they did the wrong thing, I judged God off of that instantly. I was like, well, that's what that is. And it happened enough times where I was like, well, I don't want any part of that because I feel like those guys are doing the wrong thing and they're thanking God and they're saying they're a Christian. And so I just shut off of it really quickly because that was my perception of it. And I told this story like I said to Sherry, oh, this guy, he talks about God and then he does this. And Sherry said, well, you know how those guys like were cheating in that tournament? And I said, yeah. And I said, yeah. She said, well, that's what all bass fishermen must be like. Like that must be what you're like. And I was like, nah, that's not me. I don't do that. And then the penny sort of dropped. I was like, oh, okay, I know what you're saying. And that was my first time that I was like, I don't judge God off of what someone else has done, you know. And it sort of opened up a little window to be like, okay, I've probably been at fault for that. And it started my journey into actually looking into it, you know, and seeing Sherry and Craig and their family, and then starting to see better examples that I wanted to be like. And I was like, what's up with that guy? And then I would find out that he was a strong Christian family guy, and then he was doing the right things. And I was like, okay. And
They had something you said that you were looking for. Hope.
Oh,
Remember,
yeah.
You're like...
Well, I sort of... like through that, I guess, I started to ask questions. I think that was the biggest thing that I hadn't done before. I'd made up in my mind what it was. And so through that, all of everything we just spoke about, to winning that trophy and hanging on to that, I started to realize that I'm just going to keep doing this. What's the next thing? I'm going to climb to the next thing. And I started to ask questions and look into it. Like, I realized that there's got to be something else to life than me just chasing these constant goals. And as I started to go and ask questions, and from peers and people that knew more than me, it started to make sense. And I just wish I got the heavy end of Christianity first, and it was tough to soak in. And I kind of wish someone like handed me that book and said, this is how you live a good life. And it would have simplified it a lot for me. But through my life and just everything that I'd seen in my life, I wrote a couple things down because I didn't want to miss them. But on this side that I'd lived on for so long, and everything that I've seen and all the people around me, it was, as humans, it was being prideful, being entitled, fear of losing this, fear of all of these things happening, having resentment for someone that did something or got more than you, hate, doubt, anger. You can just keep going. And I could see that in my life, people's lives around me, and I'm like, looking at it. And when I started to actually search and look into the Bible and read it, it was the opposite of that. And it was humility, gratitude, courage, forgiveness, love, faith, patience, you know, that, and just having that gratitude. And I'm like, I looked at the two at the time, and I'm like, I want to be over here. And that's when a little switch went off to be like, I need to start looking at this, because this side is not working for me or anyone around me.
You read a book too at that time that really hit you hard.
Kayla had grown up in a Christian family, so she was always she did great because she never pushed it on me, but she showed me examples of what it was like. And so I actually wanted, we talked about it last night and I couldn't quite nail it down, but I wanted the actual thing I think about, that switch, not the switch, but what pushed me was I wanted to honor Kayla. I wanted to do the right thing by looking into it enough for her, because she's pushing me, she's setting the example and talking to me, and I'm like, I can't just make it up and say, yeah, I know about it, and I've never read anything about it. So I started to look into it, for Kayla, and that, that was probably the driving force that first started me to actually start reading.
You read a book called The Purpose-Driven Life.
Yeah. Yep.
That was a bomb.
We read that together, and that simplified things a lot for me. And I was like, and it was just little tiny sentences, little things that caught me, and I'm like, there's something to this. And as we went, I started to feel, the more I dove into it and the more I read, the bigger the weight started to pull off my shoulders. And as a man in this world, I had my wife, I had finances, I had my job, my career, the reliance of people on me, their expectation. It's you can go on and on and on. As a man, I had this massive weight on my shoulders, and when I didn't do good, it was like someone hit me with a sledgehammer. I'd be on the ground. In 2016, I lost my career. I couldn't get out of the camper. I was so down. I was like, my life is over. I have my dream, all of this goal. It just hit me so hard. And as I started to realize what this was, I could feel that weight come off of me. And I'm like, I'm still going to try as hard as I can. I want this better than ever. But what more am I going to do? I'm trying as hard as I can. And if it doesn't work out, I'm going to put all of that on me. But at the same token, I did the same when I won. I was like King Kong, chest out, I'm the man. And my life was going like this all the time, up and down. And as I started to dive in and realize that this was just a book telling me how to actually live my life the correct way, I felt this steady balance. And when I went out on the water, I just felt all the weight off me and I could actually see clear and see forward. And I'm like, grateful. Thank you for being here. Every morning I started waking up, I was like, it was nothing to do with anything else, but just pure gratitude for waking up another day and taking on another challenge.
Now, during this process, you started, you had a conversation with a Navy SEAL that really impacted your life. Tell me about that.
That was back in 2013 when I was really getting beat down and it seemed impossible. I'd fish in the US 2011, 2012, 2013, and in 2013 I had my worst year ever. I finished in the hundreds all year, and I'm like, this is impossible. I can't make it. And at the time, I was into fitness, still am, and I want to be the best I can be. I treated fishing like an athletic sport, and I listened to this Navy SEAL. It was a documentary talking about Murph and his story, and it really hit home with me. But he said at that time, I'm like, I'm going to quit, I'm going to give up, this is too hard, I'm going to go back to Australia. And he said, the guy that makes the Navy SEAL, this top little 1%, he's like, it's not the best swimmer, it's not the strongest, the most talented, the best guy. He said, they never ever make the SEAL team. He said, it's the guy with the biggest heart. And when he said that, it hit me. And I went back to a mentor that was letting me and Kayla live in his shop. I call it his shed. We were living in a shed in Dallas, but it was a nice shop. But we were living on a single mattress in there, and I was telling Gene, I was talking to him about it, and I said, these guys need to fear my heart. And he sort of sat up and looked at me and he said, what did you say? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, what you just said. And I said, fear my heart. And he said, dude, that's you. He said, you need to run with that. And that's been my mantra. That's been my thing that has gotten me up. I made one single hat, and I made a little wristband, and every morning when it was freezing cold and I didn't want to get up and I was getting beat down, I'd look down, and that was my little thing to say, I got to get up. And it's turned into something really cool. It's a couple years later, I'd be wearing that hat, and it inspired me to take on guys that were just the impossible. And I was in a gas station, and I walked up to the gas station front, and this lady was behind there serving me, and she looked up and she said, that's me. And I said, what? And she said, your hat. And I said, really? And she said, yeah, fear my heart, that's me. And it was like an older lady. And I said, why? And she was like, I look after my grandchildren, and I take on this, and it gave me goosebumps. And I was like, this is something different than what I thought it was ever going to be. And we've worked, built it up, and we've
turned it into sort of like a brand.
Yep.
And now there's like Twitter, it's all over the place. I had no idea how big this thing has gotten, but you started this sort of ministry almost. Explain it, what it is.
Well, it's turned into that. I thought it was going to be this sports brand that was going to like motivate people to do better in sports or something, but the faith side of things has changed everything for me. Everything that I've ever chased and looked for has had this ceiling on it. It's had this cap that I'm like, I can just get there, and then there's there's just the same thing to be had over and over, and I think so many of us feel that same way in everything that we do. And once I started looking into faith and looking into the Bible, there had no ceiling. It just keeps going, and I get so excited about learning it and reading it and taking it in every single day. It's just making me better and better and better. And so I want to make sure that it's going that way, and I want to fire up men. You know, I want to fire up people. I want to light a fire in their hearts. I want to get them off the ground, get them off the seats, chasing something that they wouldn't have if they got left. You know, we just seem to settle, and mediocrity is not where we need to be. I want people to find their purpose in this life and to actually enjoy it when they do. And I've been through it where I got there and realized it wasn't. And so it's taken a big turn. We've done tons of good things with it. We do big lake cleanups. We try and get everyone involved. We try and get experiences, but at the end of the day, it's awakening the underdog. It's telling people that no matter where you are in this world, what position you're in, how low you'll get, you can get back up and make it to the top. Your past isn't your past. It's about your future. It's about what's happening tomorrow. And Fear My Heart's gonna do that for youth, for young people, and use the outdoors with that. Fishing, hunting, fitness, getting strong, and just telling men that how important, you know, it's going to involve everyone, but I know the heart of the man, and I know how, through the Bible, I've realized how important our job is to be a dad, to be a mentor, to be all of these things for our family and the people around us. And I've had so many people pour into me and help me to get to my journey, and I keep those people around me. I keep those people that are far above me to keep driving me, but I get to realize I need to turn around and pick people up and lift them up along the way. And I want to use this platform and my platform and Fear My Heart to do that. And seeing you guys over there buying the stuff and wearing it tonight, just it can only be God's doing. It's unbelievable that I'm sitting up here today from a little town in Toowoomba, Queensland, and just be sitting up here talking about God. It's incredible.
Yeah. So now you're using this sort of brand to motivate people, and if you're interested in following that, you can go and it's on Twitter. You can get the information. I actually follow everything he does now, and I root for him every weekend at the tournaments, and you want to be involved in that. That's a great thing. I was just thinking about you were really, one of the things about you is even when we were saying stuff that we were hoping you were getting.
Yeah.
And only at the time I actually thought maybe you were. Now I'm finding out, looking back, going, wow, Evan really loved that you said, yeah, I didn't understand one thing you were saying. Evan loves when people tell me that. But yeah. You've always been somebody who has sought counsel. And I think part of the reason you're where you are right now is because once you did decide to start looking, you read, you studied, you asked questions, you talked to Craig and Sherry, and we really do believe that wise counsel, you walk with the wise, you become wise, and you walk with the foolish, you become foolish. And you've always sort of built around yourself. Even when you weren't a believer, you were always like calling, looking ahead. You know, who's doing what I'm not doing? How do I learn that? That's the only way you can accelerate from where you were to that level. Yep. Is if you're a lifelong learner.
Yep.
And so you've always done that. And your encouragement, we were talking about this other day, not only to continue to ask for that in your life, but then to reach back. Yep. And be that guy for somebody else, which means it takes intentionality and to have your eyes open.
A guy, I do see it this day and age with young guys. a mentor of mine in Australia that helped me with fishing, he told me this years ago. He said, I have people all the time that ask me, how did Carl make it? Like, what was different about him? And they said to him, he listens. And although I say I didn't listen to you that day, I was taking it in, but it was just having this understanding of what it really was about. But I'm listening and learning and wanting to get better. And I take that on. I take, what I've always done as a kid right through is wanting the challenge, wanting the hard thing. Dan is down here. They put the elk up here. Idaho has taught me so much.
By the way, that makes me sick. You started bow hunting 4 years ago, and you have 4 bulls in a row with your bow. That's sickening.
It's because of one man down there, but I'll take the credit. But it was the Idaho is a special place to me because the tough country breeds tough people. I'm looking for the challenge all the time. Like in Australia, if something's easy, it's got nothing to do with me. I don't want anything to do with it. And it's one of the reasons I love the Bible, because I'm like, it's all the hard things. Spoke about someone doing the wrong thing by you, or screwing you over, or doing this thing, and you're like sick in the gut and you want revenge and you want these things, karma. You're saying it's ruining your life thinking about this person that's hurt you, and you're like, that's all your human instincts. We've all had it, and it's ruined days, weeks, months of our life in this person. You're like, what does the Bible say? And you go through it and it says, forgive them. And you're like, I don't want to do that. That sucks.
That's not going to work.
That's not going to work. And then you do it. And then that person, you forgive them, and then that weight comes off you. And you're like, man. And then that person comes back to you later, 2 weeks later, and says, man, I've been going through all this stuff. I'm so sorry for what I just done. And you build the relationship back, and you're like, man, I didn't know that was happening. And God works in those ways. And you start doing those things over and over and over, and then that's when your eyes open and you start to, your life just starts to change because you start doing those things consistently. But going back to the challenge is Idaho, when I first got up here and I got into the mountains and I seen how thick the country was and how steep it was, the first thing I thought of is, this is where I want to be. This is the challenge. And when you talk to someone about shooting an elk with archery in North Idaho, they say it's nearly impossible. And I'm like, that's for me. That's what I want to do. And like from that day on, when I seen that and I seen those guys those young fit guys who'd kill some bulls, I was like, I'm gonna kill one of these bulls one day. And I would literally train like I was training for the Olympics to one day get an opportunity to go with someone that I could go down into those holes and actually make it down in there. And thanks to my wife, I met Dan, and this is how you should take on life, because if I wasn't ready and I wasn't thinking about that, I stayed ready for all of these opportunities, whether it was someone taking me fishing or what it was. I had to make sure that I was ready for the opportunities, and I got an opportunity to hunt with Dan, and he was like, we went out and these bulls bugled so far away. He's like, if we go after them, we're not going to get back here till midnight, and it's going to be a mission. And I'm like, let's go. And he's like, all right.
That's why when we go hunting, me and Randy, we go out with you and we're like, you ask, where's the bull? And we go, over there. And you go, all right, let's go. And we go, no.
Is there a road?
No. You go right on. And the scary thing is, you do.
Yep.
And so,
It's the challenge. I love the challenge. And that's what I've got to do with Dan. Dive, go after him, push the extra mile, and ask for that challenge.
Well, Jeremy Tripp also is another guy down here that you've hunted with too, and he's another guy I say, I'll see you when you get back, by the way. But let me ask you one last thing. If you were to say one thing that you would want to encourage these guys with, what would it be? I know you've this Experience of God book that you've been reading, it really affected my life too.
This was like, I had a story. My family and people in Australia are starting to ask me questions, and it's super cool, but sometimes they see what I'm doing and they're like, what's up with that? And dove into the Bible and they've gone to the front page of like the Old Testament, which I'm so young into this. This is only a couple years in, but what it's done for my life, I can't even explain. But they'll be reading it and there's like, it's talking about a bunch of dudes that lived till they were 900. What is this about? And I'm like, okay, hang on, I got you. And Craig did the same thing for me. He got me on track with the purpose-driven life and these ones that just that resonated with me and made me understand it. But this is just a little book. It's called Experience God Day by Day, and I have a routine now. It's non-negotiable. Every morning I read at least 2 pages of the Bible. I read a story in this, and I take it serious. I'm not just going to church on Sunday and listening to you, even though I love everything that you do up here.
Nice, good job. There you go.
I added that in for you. But every day I'm soaking it in, and I'm wanting to learn. And the other day we're at Gunnersville, the first elite event of the season, and it was 17 degrees in the morning, blowing 30 miles an hour, wind chill of -5. The bays were frozen over. No one wanted to go out there. It was nasty.
It was a practice day.
It was a practice day, and I couldn't wait to go. I was like, I want this challenge. I want to get through this and see what it's like to be out there at that temperature. And this is what God does. You ask for the challenge, you go through it, He forges you, He knocks you to the ground, and then you get back stronger. And I've seen that over my life. I kiss the ground and thank God for all the brick walls that He's thrown in my life, all the setbacks, the times I wanted to give up, the things He put in my way. I look at it like a work of art now that I see it. I thought I was getting unlucky, and why is this happening to me? And instead I'm like, it's different now. When I got kicked out in 2016, I'm down and out, and only last year it almost happened again. And I thought of it, and as it was happening, I was excited. I couldn't wait to see what God had in store for me. That's the two differences. And so Gunnersville, I woke up in the morning, I read this one page, and it has a scripture, and I'm like, men need to hear this, and because it just hit home with me. And it's a story. I think it is in the Old Testament. It's Joshua 14:12, but it talks about this guy Caleb. He's with this massive crew living in the city, and all of their enemies have taken over this mountain, and they're up in there. They've built fortresses, and they're fighting back. And when I looked into that story, I'm like, the enemies and all of that stuff up in the mountains, the scary things, the fortresses, that's our purpose, that's our dream, that's our goal, that's everything that we've ever wanted as men. And all of these people got scared and said, we're not going. And this one guy, Caleb, and I think Moses said, we want to go, send us. And so God actually looked down at them and said, you all don't want to go? Fine, go and wander off. And they wandered the desert, which is what we do when we don't chase our purpose. We don't have that fire under us to be the person that we're built to be the best we can be. And so they wandered around until they died. And I'm like, and so when Caleb came back, he said, send me. And this is just a little bit of that story. It says, when God was dividing the land, the people were asking for lush valleys and grassy plains. Caleb asked for the mountain. The Israelites had driven their enemies into the mountains where they'd built fortresses. This didn't intimidate Caleb. He asked for the challenge. He did not trust in his own strength, but in God's presence. Caleb longed to see God's work in power. He knew he would be less likely to rely on God if he dwelt in easy places. He chose a situation in which he would have to trust in God. Caleb knew, and it says, Caleb knew his inheritance from God was on the mountain. This is key. He refused to allow the difficulty of gaining it to stop him from enjoying all that God had promised him. So if you always choose the easy way, asking for the peaceful valleys, you'll never see God's power displayed to enable you to take the mountain. Seek the mountains, and you'll witness God doing things through your life that can only be explained by His presence. I read that and I was ready to run through a brick wall, and I did. I went out there and took on the freezing cold. But I sent that to a few of my mates, and I'm like, every man needs to read that. We need men in this world that are strong, are leading, providing and are present to our kids, to young fellas coming up, and being leaders. And I want to help do that. I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy for my wife, my kids growing up. I want to intentionally be there and be present when I am. I want to provide. I want to be busy. I want to be successful. But when I read that, I can relax and do that and actually be present in my wife and the people around my life.
How many of you guys appreciate him? Yeah. Super proud of you. Thankful. I got to be there for your baptism.
Yep.
And a couple of us are out there. Craig got to actually baptize you, and that was right there in the lake. And that was a profound moment for everybody that had been praying for you. Your wife's crying, your mother-in-law's
You were crying.
I'm crying like a baby, and Randy. I mean, there's a bunch of us, and so it's been a great journey. Guys, folks, I just want to tell you, my story's similar. You win. Pretty soon it's not enough. Then you're afraid you're going to lose it. And different sport, same issues. And in both of our lives, there came a place where we knew winning wasn't the solution. And there had to be something else. And there is something else. And we want you to know what that is. He wouldn't stand up here today if Jesus hadn't changed his life. And we want you to know what that is. And that means you're going to have to ask somebody. When he started looking, he had a lot of questions, and he asked. He let somebody speak to his life. You came here today, and if you don't know Jesus, somebody probably brought you. You want to take the mountains? Here's the first mountain. Have the courage to say you don't know. We always got to have the answers. We don't have the answers. You got to ask somebody and say, tell me about this Jesus. And if you brought somebody today, man, this world's crazy. We all know it. And it's not going to get any better. It's not going to get any better. It's crazy. And if you don't have Jesus right now, if you're not standing on Jesus right now, you're on shifting sand. And so the reason we do this event is because we want you to know Jesus. We want to encourage you. And so I'm going to pray. Today, if you have decided to give your life to Jesus, have the courage, have the guts to say it to us and ask us what next. Or ask somebody that you came with. But don't leave here tonight. You don't have to leave here tonight alone. The Lord Jesus draws you. He knocks on your heart, the door of your heart, and you have to open and let him in. And if you do that, it doesn't matter what you've done. No matter how jacked up you've been, join the crowd. Doesn't matter. He'll take you right where you are. Bow your heads and let's pray. Lord, thank you for this night. Thank you for our time together. Thank you for Carl's life. Thank you for those who invested in Carl. And I know there's a bunch of men here tonight. Some are Christians but have forgotten what it means to walk closely with you. I pray they'd be encouraged and awake again. There's some who've never really given their life to you. I pray that today would be the day of a new beginning, where the weight comes off. Thank you for this time. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, guys. Appreciate having me. Thanks, mate.
If we haven't met, my name's Craig Miles. I'm one of the pastors here on staff, and I'm also Carl's favorite father-in-law. And just wanted to tell you a couple of things that's kind of cool about Fear My Heart that they've been working on. One of the things is this. They have for years had people going, man, I love what you're doing, investing in the next generation, all that kind of stuff. How can I be a part? Is there any way I can donate? And it was just kind of like, no. Sponsors did it and continue to do it. But for a year now, they've been working together. Carl, Kayla, Sherry have been working on putting together a foundation. That's a nonprofit side to Fear My Heart. So Fear My Heart is now a charitable entity that people can donate to and all of that if they want to be a part. If you want to know more about Carl and Fear My Heart and the foundation, the things that they do, on your tables there's a little card, and on one side it's got the different social media ways that you can connect with them. On the other side, there's a QR code. You can take a picture of it, and it will send you to the foundation site to show you a video of one of the events that they've done and some of the things that you can do like that. But all the money from the merch sales and that people donate, it goes to fund the mission. And here's what I'm most excited about. It's always been cool because Carl has such a passion for both men and kids, but now he gets to use that platform to share the most important thing, certainly to us, which is his faith. And so if you want to follow him, be a part of that, you can. A bunch of guys have said, hey, where do I get the Fear My Heart elk shirt, the hunting shirt? Talking about this one. This is a shirt that they had made specifically for this event. Nobody else will ever get this shirt again. The bad news is y'all bought them all. The good news is they've got them on their website. They're going to keep them up there for just like 2 or 3 days. Shipping's free during that time. So if you didn't get one and you were like, man, I really wanted that shirt and I know I'm not going to be able to get it again, you can go talk to the gals over there selling merch, or you can go to the website and get it. But they're only going to have it on there for a couple days because they really wanted to be able to say only the people that came to this event had the opportunity to get that. If you're a parent in here and you got kids and they didn't get anything, they've got stickers and they got the wristbands over there. If you want to do a donation for it, you can. If not, we would love for every kid to go get a sticker and a wristband. And we're just blessed that y'all are here and that Carl got to share his story.